Welcome back to KTN Prime. Thanks for staying with us. We continue with our deliberations right here in studio, and as hinted earlier, I'm joined by two seasoned legislators as we get to canvass the latest developments that are playing out in Kenya's political and governance landscape. Allow me to introduce my guest tonight, Dan Manzo, an advocate and equally the senator of Makueni County. Senator, karibu sana.
Asante.
Always a pleasure to have you with us.
Yes.
Thanks for your time. Adan Keynan equally joins us. He's a member of parliament for Eldas constituency, a seasoned legislator. Karibu sana to our studios.
Good evening, viewers.
Asante. Gentlemen, let's start with our analysis with the latest, where just today, Standard Media Group journalists happened to be blocked from covering a presidential function in Naivasha. It was all to do with an education conference, and a State House communication official actually accused us of biased reporting against the government, and that was the sole reason why our journalists, including some from MediaMax, local media station, were equally blocked from accessing. That officer, who identified himself as a State House communications director, said the media house would not be allowed to cover the event because of what he termed as negative reporting against the state. Manzo, I'd like to begin with you, Senator, because you're equally an advocate of the High Court, and we often speak about constitutionalism. In light of this recent exclusion of a section of the media from covering a presidential event, do you believe we're witnessing perhaps a systemized erosion of Article 34 of the Constitution that highlights on the freedoms of the press?
First and foremost, that is a very unfortunate incident. There is no way this officer would have acted without instructions from above him. And, you know, journalists cover what is factual. You can be able to rewind, you know, the tape and get the facts. It is true the government has reported that 99.5% of children have transited to year 10. Unfortunately, we have seen recently coverings, you know, from different media houses that there are actually children who have not gone to school. I have come to learn that I have seen 3 cases from Makueni. And this weekend, I'm going down to Makueni, and I'm going to follow up those cases because the villages where these children come from are known, and they were covered by the press. And I am happy the press to have shown the flight of these children. And we'll be more than happy to even engage their members of parliament who have a CDF, who have bursaries, engage the county government of Makueni. And where the two are unable to do something, I do something from my pocket because a senator doesn't have those facilities. But I'm aware that that should have been covered. Those children should be at school. It's factual. So because this Naivasha was an education event, I don't see any reason why a media house should have been excluded. And if you have a problem with the media, you know where to report. They are usually very fair. One time, a journalist was reported having covered something which was not truthful. And although my party leader didn't follow it up, the people at that church function took it up themselves and reported. And this person was barred from participating and working for 6 months. And therefore, there is law, there is a constitution, there is freedom of the press. This is a media house just like another. And even after being denied the story, you still got the story. You still got the pictures because other than the camera, there are so many other cameras. And the media houses share. So I think that is ill will. It is in bad faith, and that's one reason Kenyans have a problem with this government. You know, every time they do something which is negative like that, it costs them millions of votes. So, and Kenyans are the judges. In 2027, Kenyans will be judging this current government. So every time you commit things like that, I think Ruto and his people must know. That State House communication officer, I'm telling him, you did not help the president and your political party today. In fact, you send yourself home. And 2027, that journalist will find himself jobless. He'll be looking for a job probably from the same Standard or other media houses. Yeah. So pride goes before a fall. Let's just be fair and do justice to all Kenyans. There's no need to outrightly break the law, show malice, and expect Kenyans to vote you.
And remember, it's not the first time. I think in recent history, while Sebastian Sawe, our world record holder in the marathon, was being hosted at State House, our sports journalists were denied entry to the house on the hill. Quite unfortunate. So, Keynan, as you come in, there seems to be an impression that perhaps the administration is becoming increasingly uncomfortable with independent scrutiny. What's your take on that?
Thank you. I think first, there are three things that we need to really understand and dissect.
Yeah.
The right to access information is a constitutional right, which every Kenyan, not only journalist,
True,
must enjoy. The right to inform is also a constitutional right. Equally, responsible journalism, again, is something that is supposed to be a critical component of our governance structure. Now, the issue that has been raised, first of all, I want to brace myself with who is this state officer? Does he have a name? State House Communication Officer? Because I believe there must be so many people. I'll want to see. Two, was there a written statement? Because these days, a lot of, I'm not in any way trying to downplay what may have happened, because I didn't follow up to from the beginning to the end. But I think once we know, because the State House is a critical national institution, a critical constitutional institution, if anything, that's supposed to provide, is a unifying institution, actually, let me say this. So, was this the first incident? What triggered it? Were there mechanisms that were applied actually to address if there were issues between a particular media house and State House? But on the face of it, having been around for quite some time, this president or the president actually have been one of the most tolerant. Look at the headlines, look at the news. I've been around during Moi's time as a member of parliament, during Mzee Kibaki's, during Honorable Uhuru. And I think if you look at the headlines and the kind of news that comes out from the president, on the presidents every day, the system has been tolerant. To the best of my recollection, because we are around, we have seen it. I haven't seen media practitioners actually being harassed. So this particular incident, if it's true, then I think there's need to investigate why did it happen, what triggered, who did it, who is this State House official, did the Standard Media House officially launch complaint to the leadership of State House, to the police, and to the other relevant agencies that, you have your own Media Practitioners Council and other institutions that actually oversight you people. Once that is done, I think a report should be generated, and that report is what is going to inform. But on the face of it, let me say this. There's no place, or there's nobody in the modern Kenya who can deny media practitioners the right to access information. But we must also be factual.
Okay, let's talk about this factual reporting, because I've hosted government-allied leaders, opposition-allied leaders, and at times we're on the receiving end in terms of not sugarcoating things. We say it as it is. At times we're labeled sensationalist journalism. You get those negative feedbacks, but at the end of the day, we have a sole duty of informing the masses on factual-based reporting. Would you front the same criticism at a time like this to media houses? How have we approached that balanced reporting, whether we are calling out or whether we are complimenting whichever side of the political divide?
You see, you must be having your own, there's no absolute freedom anywhere in the world. I think that even here, as we sit here, there are rules that we must adhere. That's why you have given us gadgets.
Yes.
That's why we have to face a particular side. There are rules. So even the media houses have their own regulations, their own rules, whether it's in-house or whether it is through other agencies that bring together. But I think on the face of it, let's say this. You have the right to inform. But the right to inform must not also injure the right to fair hearing and access to the right information. So it's like you have the right to inform, but give us also the right information. That right information is what is going to enable us actually to make a decision You see, that's what democracy is all about. But if you do, and these days I see there's a lot of, in this era of AI, there's a lot of sensationalism. And many countries have been destroyed. I want to appeal to the media practitioners. Yes, inform as far as the law allows. Inform as far as your duty or your organizational mandate permits. But remember, we also have a country. So let's not tear Kenya into pieces, because ultimately, that is our protector. So for those who are in charge of key national institutions like State House and many other institutions, I think let's also allow free access of our media practitioners within the law. And that's the way it's supposed to be. So if the Standard or any other group has been too sensational in their reporting or too factual in courts, you know, at the end of the day, who are the consumers? It's the Kenyan public. Or, because the world has become a global village, is any person who will have access actually to that particular news item. So I think let's look at it objectively. That's my take. Objectively, so that everybody plays his or her role within the confines of our established democratic norms that are permitted by our constitution.
Okay, Manzo, if we call out perhaps the government for failures here and there, would you term that as negative reporting?
First and foremost, you know, in these modern days, you have many ways of reporting. There's documentation, there is video, and even if the Standard doesn't do it, or KTN, another media house will, and then even social media will. So if, for example, you know, when the president said that, you know, even motorbikes can be fueled with the paraffin, it could have been, you know, a slip of the tongue. But you slipped. So if you quote that, you cannot be, you are reporting negatively. I want to say that there should be balanced, you know, reporting. For example, if the president talked about tank and no oil refinery, you know, it does exist. There must be that tape and there must be that reply. If that is just replayed again on television, that is fairness. So I think what should happen is the Standard should take up this matter with the relevant authorities. The only person you cannot move proceedings unless constitutional against while in office is the president. This other media person should be cited, you know, in the relevant places, should be taken to court, should be taken to, because he's also a media person, should be taken through the processes on what he has done. I don't think this station should leave it at that. And then, if not so, let them apologize. Because I'm just wondering what happened to forgiveness, what happened to reconciliation. The office of the president is a symbol of national unity according to the constitution. It doesn't matter what happens. As the president, you must remain, or the office of the president must remain above board, must remain a unified factor, must apologize where it makes mistakes, and must also point truth where it is. So if they feel that you've been unfair, they know what to do. They should have done that, follow the procedure. But you cannot take the law to your own hands. You cannot become the judge, the jury, and the prosecutor at the same time. Okay. There must be a balance so that we continue building the nation for the future and prosperity. And as I've said, those sort of actions in the government, bad faith, malice, bad talk, ill will, we have seen them. And every time they do something like that, let them know it costs them a fortune. It costs the president a lot. Every gain the president seems to make, one blunder by his followers, either the leaders or majority in the House, one of the politicians associated to him, they do something which the people don't approve. Okay. It takes them back many votes. So for me as a member of opposition, I'm very happy with their goofs. Let them continue goofing so that we can send them home.
Interesting. Anyway, let's shift focus.
I think this, there are things that we do not need really to mix. accountability to the Constitution is a critical component of our constitutional objective. It's not something that somebody should live and praise and somebody should live and beg for. But equally, all of us are expected to be responsible. You see, what we have done now is like every time we want to justify our political position because we disagree and assume that because we are not of the same viewpoint, what I say does not appear to be good or does not appear to be resonating very well with the Kenyan public, and yet we are too judgmental. I know what my friend has said here. The president or the presidency is a unified institution. President William Ruto is not the first occupant. We have had Mzee Kenyatta, we have had Mzee Moi, we have had Mzee Kibaki, we have had my friend Uhuru Kenyatta. The tradition must remain the same. The tradition. Because the tradition. Because the standard should treat President William Ruto the same way they treated Uhuru Kenyatta, the same way you treated, or they treated Mzee Moi, the same way they treated, notwithstanding the politics of the day.
Yeah.
And I think they were not there during Mzee Kibaki. That is what is expected, and that should be part of the norms of your objective reporting.
Yes.
And that's really, actually, you can earn my trust, and I can say, look, this is a very objective media house. But you see, what people are trying to attempt, and you know, I always say, you know, like politics, what is the definition of politics? The modern day politics, the art of the possible. This definition might be different from the definition of politics 20 years ago. So my friend here tomorrow, and I know very soon they'll be joining the broad-based government.
No. That is from you.
I think very soon they'll be joining.
No.
Because you know,
we're going to form government.
Look, I'm predicting. Very soon you will be seeing Mwanzo campaigning for President William Ruto.
No.
I know it's a very seasonal legislation.
I will not do.
You see, the bit I'm trying to say is we are mixing. You want to create news, sensational news, and you want to force it on other people. Look at this, my friend. The last 4 years, the kind of criticism that has been, you know, President William Ruto actually has been subjected to. I haven't had anybody who has been arrested or who has been pushed because of this. I've seen all sorts of bad news on President William. So in my mind, among the many presidents that I've seen, he's the most resilient, and I wouldn't want to use other adjectives.
Okay. This is the last one I want to mention.
With the politics of the day, and I think that's a credit to him, because he sees you criticize, he says it's part of my job, criticize me, but I'll continue to work for the people of Kenya. That is the attitude that we expect, because if you don't do that, then meaning you will lose track and you'll miss the agenda that you wanted really to achieve. For now, peace, tranquility, democracy is something that all of us must jealously be ready to protect and believe in, and that is what constitutes, or that's what's supposed to define the sovereign Republic of Kenya.
Just our last one, which is evidential. Several ministers, cabinet secretaries have come to the House. I sit in committee of delegated legislation. They are supposed to do public participation as a ministry before they make regulations. And they say, we have instructions not to use the standard. Because you see, the law says you utilize at least 2 highly circulated in newspapers in the country for your advertisement.
Yes.
And they say nowadays we have been told specifically not to use the standard, and this is a minister speaking. And we are using MyGov, which should be transported again by a popularly circulated newspaper. So the ministers have come open and said, we have instructed, who can instruct a minister? So I want to say this bias should stop, because if you want fairness, then be fair. And that's how you get justice. And there can never be justice if there is no fairness, if there is inhuman treatment. I believe those journalists who are given inhuman treatment, which is against the Constitution. All that the government should do is to apologize to this media house, and we move on.
Well, it goes without saying that media is not a cheerleading squad of the status quo. So we call out vices in administration, in society, and it's not safe for just this administration as well. I think you remember when former President Uhuru Kenyatta said gazeti ni ya kufunga nyama. He even left social media for quite some time due to the negative sustained press. And I think, as you mentioned, well, he's definitely sustained the negative publicity. But we don't, look for this negativity. It's something that comes out, and we're simply a mirror of the society. And I think that's our work as the fourth estate, because at the end of the day, we have a due diligence to members of the public to report things as they are. No sugarcoating, no throwing the baby with the bathwater. We say it as it is.
Objectively.
Objectively. But remember the Lucy Kibaki.
I think it's objectively.
Yes.
Without fear, without favor, within the confines of the law.
Indeed. Free from bias.
Yes, within the confines of the law.
Okay, well, jury's out there whether that was an affront to media freedoms, and the conversation will keep on. Let's take a short break. The bills have to be paid. When we come back, we take a look at President William Ruto's 2-day visit to Tanzania. They signed a couple of MOUs, 8 memorandum of understanding, but a couple of issues that stood out, and we'll be canvassing that right after the break. You're watching KTN Prime. Welcome back to KTN Prime. Thanks for staying with us. I'm still joined in studio by 2 seasoned legislators, Dan Manzo, the senator for Makueni County, and Adan Keynan, the member of parliament for Eldas constituency. Thanks for your patience, gentlemen. I'd like us to take a look at President William Ruto's 2-day state visit in neighboring Tanzania that happened earlier this week. Among other developments, we saw a business forum that was held. Ruto addressed the Tanzanian parliament, and even 8 MOUs were signed between the two countries, covering a raft of areas touching on energy, legal cooperation, agriculture, just to name a few. But as this happened, a few issues emerged that were making headlines. The Tanzanian president, Samia Suluhu, argued that democracy on this side of the world should be unique, and it should be used to perhaps whip the youth to stick within tradition and abandon defiance. Let's just hear from the horse's mouth and some of the reactions that followed after, even from civil society organizations.
Jinsi ya kudeal na hawa watoto wetu watovu wa adabu wanaojiita nani hilo jina wao eti na wenyewe wanajifanya ni hao wa East Africa. Kwa hiyo popote wanakwenda kupigania demokrasi. Kwa hiyo wafanye fujo huku, wachome huku, wadisturb serikali zao. Nikamwambia Ruto, we have to send firm on this watovu wa adabu hao. Tusichague wa Tanzania au wa Kenya. Wakija kwangu na chapa mikwaju, wakija kwako chapa mikwaju, ili wakae sawa. Neno demokrasi lisituchafulie nchi zetu wala mila zetu wala desturi zetu. Demokrasi haina formula. Demokrasi ya kule mbali tofauti na ya kwetu huku. Sisi kwetu tuna mila zetu na desturi zetu zinazokwenda na hiyo demokrasi. Kwa hiyo kwa namwambia mwenzangu, hebu tusimame mguu sawa kulinda hizi nchi zetu.
The context was a threat of force against democracy defenders, protesters, and dissenters. William Ruto, present at the event, appeared to endorse a statement signaling tacit approval for this hardline stance.
The same tactics that led to mass murder in Tanzania are acceptable and should be adopted here. They are not, and we shall not be silent, nor shall we allow Suru's idea of democracy to be normalized.
Okay, gentlemen, let's start with you, Keynan, because at the end of the day, President William Ruto and the administration have championed Kenya as a leading democracy, especially in the region, in East Africa and whatnot. Following such comments by the head of state, others have perceived President William Ruto's silence to mean consent. But let's deal with the facts right here. What do you make of that view that Gen Z is a menace that perhaps needs taming. Do you agree with that? And equally, is their defiance a legitimate critique, or are they simply causing chaos? Yeah.
I think we need to also critique the circumstances under which that particular statement actually was made by President Suluhu. I could read, she's talking like a mother figure, in the context of, maybe if she was not the president of Tanzania, that comment will have been accepted and embraced by many family members, because like, say, spare the rod, spoil the child. But I think what we should not allow in this modern day, we need to entrench, we need to allow a vibrant, democratic, a responsible, vibrant, democratic culture, regardless of our age differences. Whether you are Gen Z, whether you are in the category of all people like myself, and many others, I think that culture must be accepted within the traditions, within the norms, within the law of that particular society. Because that's what separates us. Because there is nowhere where there's absolute freedom. So one thing that she said, and I think that must have been preceded by certain discussions, maybe, we have the East African community. We have the East African community, and Kenya and Tanzania are members of the East African community. And therefore, we expect the East African community culture. So because there's that freedom of movement, we have the East African passport, and therefore sometimes, though Tanzania is a member of SADC again, so I think it's because of this that what she was trying to say, and remember in Tanzania is a product of many years of Ujamaism. In Kenya, is purely the face of capitalism in this particular part of the world. So what is so much deeply entrenched in Tanzania might be not acceptable, and you can see it. In Tanzania, tribalism is not as pronounced as in Kenya. In Kenya, tribalism and regionalism is the face of everything. So, and because up to now you do not know the tribe of President Suluhu, I'm sure you know the tribe of President Ruto. So because of this difference, what they are trying to say is, even their own elections, the atmosphere, the way it is done, is slightly different from ours, but we have certain things in common. So in that context, the appeal to the Gen Zs to be responsible, I agree. Her comments that these people should be denied this, I totally disagree, because they are, whether they are Tanzanians, whether they are Kenyans, they are East Africans, and therefore they will have the right to do what is democratically acceptable within their respective societies. And then Kenya being a leading nation.
Yeah.
And I think this is not something that we can demean. Kenya is a leading nation, economic hub, a regional hub, a diplomatic hub, a cultural hub, a conferencing hub. There are so many things that we need to be very proud of. So our president, who is our #1 diplomat,
True.
when he makes a state visit to Tanzania, we should also be very proud of, because what are they doing? We are trying to create opportunities for our youth. We are trying to look for foreign direct investment. We are trying to create, to expand our bilateralism, because that's the only thing that we can easily say we are functioning in line with our mandate. So what the president has done is to clear a number of things on tariffs, the barriers. What the president has done, he was given an opportunity actually to address the Tanzanian parliament. It's an achievement. It's something that actually we need to be also very proud of. Because the Tanzanians are looking for opportunities, we're looking for opportunities. Tanzania is our neighbor, is an East African community member. So these are things that we need to inculcate. Investing in Tanzania is good for Kenya. Investing in Kenya is good for Tanzania, because there's that cross-border trade. So I think let's look at it objectively. Small things that happen, yes, there are goofs here and there, because we are all human beings. But I think we need to look at the bigger picture. Okay. The bigger picture is the president being our #1 diplomat,
yes,
Kenya being a member of the East African community, Tanzania being our neighbor. Their economic gains, our interests are intertwined, and therefore the bigger benefits that benefits both Tanzania and Kenya must be seen in that context, not the small things that happen and we magnify and say this should have. No, I think that is not the right thing. So I want to commend what President William Ruto has done, the context of trying to create opportunities for the unemployed youth. And remember today, one of the most challenging things that we are facing today is unemployment, and therefore any opportunity that will give, space to the many unemployed youth is something that I will always welcome.
Definitely, and we have to hail the positives and equally call out the negatives as well, because we're dealing with a country that experienced post-election violence where there were mass killings, and I think a report by some Tanzanian officials actually accredited that. Senators, you come in. Suluhu suggests that democracy in this region should be unique and that the youth should be whipped back into tradition to end defiance. What do you make of that as you juxtapose it to the Bill of Rights, which sort of protects the right to dissent?
Let me say that Kenya and Tanzania are signatories of a number of international conventions, including what you call the Baju Charter, and all of them talk about human rights and the Bill of Rights. And one thing she talks about culture and our democracy and the Western democracy. But even in our own culture, the standard is the same for Kenya and Tanzania, that whatever is, a culture should not be, repugnant to justice. Any cultural practice which is repugnant to justice or goes into breaking the law, when you judge somebody summarily, like execute, you become the judge and the prosecutor at the same time, and you execute as a police officer and sentence that person to death and actually kill them. That is not allowed under the African culture. It's not allowed under the charters, the international conventions. There should be a process. And therefore, both Kenya and Tanzania also use the Public Order Act, which is colonial, and to a certain extent has not been changed. And in fact, in the Kenyan situation, it has no regulation. The regulations expired a long time ago. And every time you ask the minister in charge of Interior, when it comes to Parliament, he says there's a team working on them. Yet these regulations are, illegal. And in an attempt to revive them in the 2024 bill, which was rejected by Kenyans, and subsequently the president agreed with them and deleted every section, they had attempted to amend Section 21 of the Statutory Instruments Act through the finance bill. And even the courts say that it had nothing got to do with the finances, although some of the regulations deal with finances. So we are talking about the rule of law. It applies everywhere in the world. No one is allowed to kill another person without a due process, and that person be sentenced in a court of law. And therefore, I completely disagree with her, and our advice to William Ruto is not correct, although both of them seem to have practiced the same culture. Those acts of parliament I've talked about, which are applicable in both Tanzania and Uganda, they say that, if you are in a demonstration, which is allowed by law, in the event the demonstration stops being lawful, then the penal code says that an inspector of police, like somebody at the level of an OCS, should now make an announcement loud and clear that the demonstrations have turned chaotic, and they are given 15 minutes or so to clear. So there must be something called proclamation, using a louder speaker. They should announce and announce and announce. And if you do that, and now whatever befalls you, if you don't disperse after 15 minutes or so, or reasonable time, then if you are found committing an act that time, like you are found breaking into a building or doing something illegal, then some reasonable force should be used to arrest you, and you are presented before a court of law. That's very fair in both sides, for the government and for the demonstrator, because all these young people are 18 years of age, they are adults of sound mind. They are not demonstrating because there is no reason to demonstrate. In Kenya, the demonstrations were because of high cost of living, an unreasonable finance bill in 2024. That does not mean you get shot dead on the ground of Parliament or on Parliament Road. Parliament is a building and a house of all Kenyans. State House is a house of all Kenyans. It's not a preserve of an individual, nor the Parliament is. So,
they're protected areas.
They are protected areas, but you know, nothing stops people from being visitors of those two houses, especially if you have been welcome. And what should happen if people come demonstrating to Parliament? You should take their petition, listen why they're here, and process it and do something about it. If people demonstrate to State House as they had threatened to, it means there is breakdown of law and order. Find out why is there breakdown of law and order. What we have seen is that at that time, Parliament refused to listen to Kenyans. They refused to do public participation. They refused to follow the law. They were insisting on forcing this finance bill on people. People said no. And I've just given you an example of the illegal amendment of Statutory Instrument Act, which was confirmed by the Constitutional Court. Therefore, governments also can go wrong. And when presidents go wrong, they should accept and apologize. In Kenya, they have offered to compensate these people. To me, it looks like a big joke, what they want to do. You should not be killed so that you are compensated. Peace should be made before that particular time. Therefore, the rule of law applies and is equal everywhere in the world. The main guiding principles are in the Quran and in the Bible. President Sulu and President William Ruto know what justice means, what it means to be fair. And you cannot just kill your Kenyans, whether through the mkwaju, or which the police use, the clobber people, they die, or they shoot and kill. That should not happen in a democracy. Everybody should be given an opportunity. But I said the law must be implemented as it is. It says give people proclamation and give them time to disperse and go home. The message has already reached.
Interesting. Justice must not only be done, but must be seen to be done. Briefly.
I think the right to picketing and peaceful assembly is a constitutional right. But within that constitutional right, there's no room for goonism. There's no room for destruction of properties. There's no room for disruption of peace and law and order. So, you know, this must be seen in the same context. Picket, do your peaceful assembly, but allow other people also to do their peaceful activities in a very conducive environment. Once this is lost, then that is chaos. And what is the work of government? What is the work of government? A responsible government is to maintain law and order. That is why we have systems. If this, you know, by the way, what many people don't understand, Sirikali, government, democracy, these words don't just come out of the blue. These words were products of great minds. Look at this, my friend. A few years ago, before the making of the nation, states of the Republic of Kenya, we had our own tribal cocoons. The Somali nation, the Kikuyu nation, the Taita nation. What has brought us together here? The national flag, the presidency. These are the unifying institutions. And within those unifying institutions, we came up with our own norms. We translated those norms into written law. That written law is supposed to be acceptable to all of us. But equally, within that written law, there is room for you to practice your faith, my faith, his own traditions, and this. So what separates us is acceptability of those norms. Just like here, if there is no modus operandi, if there is no rule, it will be chaos. You will not know even how to broadcast. That is why today, like somebody, the way my friend has put it here, there is no absolute. If you say, I want to do everything that I want, I can tell you, my friend, you walk outside there naked, and you know, once you walk naked, we'll term you as crazy, mad. You have gone out of the norms. So I think these things must be seen in that context. But one thing we must always be ready to protect, the right to peaceful assembly. We also need to inculcate that culture of tolerance, acceptability, believe in the rule of law within our democratic culture. That is what gives, because ultimately, leaders are decided through the votes. And the vote is personal. You will make a conscious decision to give to your vote the person of your choice. Nobody can take away that. But that cannot be a substitute, violence cannot be a substitute for that democratic right. So I think once we see this in this context, because many countries have lost track and gone to a civil war and political upheaval simply because they could not differentiate the right to vote in a peaceful manner and violence. And you can say what is happening. And proudly, look at the region. Horn of Africa, East Africa. Kenya is a heaven of peace. Start from all the neighbors here. And we should not take this for granted. Because many other countries have taken this for granted. So my friend here, you are the alternative government. Come up with policies. By now you should be having a shadow government. By now you should have been your shadow ministers. Don't just get engaged in blame games. Critique. If there is an economic issue, the president has made a visit there on a number of issues, signed the MOUs. Come up with your own hypothetical MOUs and say, if you are in the government, you will deal with this particular MOU in this particular manner. Okay. But just criticizing anything that is generated by the government is defeatist. And Kenyans are very clever, by the way. You will see President William Ruto will get a landslide, votes
I know his
in
supporters
2027.
have threatened to steal the election, but Kenyans will make sure the election is not stolen.
How can elections be stolen? Okay. Every individual will have the right to vote.
Some
that
members of
particular day, you
parliament
make
have
an informed
threatened
decision.
that they will bring back President Ruto through stealing the election.
No, it's not true.
That is rocketed.
By the way, you know, me and you, we supported the same candidate in the last election.
Yes.
And President Ruto was in the opposition and he bet us hands down. Even this, the only difference this time, since the advent of multipartyism, this is the only time that we'll be going into an election minus the enigma. The Honorable Raila Odinga.
Yes.
So this is going to be a very unique election. Very, very, very unique election. So by the way, get ready for President William Ruto's second term. Get ready. The sooner
We are ready to send him
Yes,
home.
get ready, because those are things that you need to tell you. Get
Only
ready.
the people can make that decision. We are ready to send
The
him
signs
home.
are there.
Yes.
People want development. People want a president who is hardworking. And I think these are the tenets that we are seeing in what president. And this is actually the one thing. This is what actually.
But the
really
signs are there. People don't want corruption. People don't want lies. People want real development. People want low cost of living. And that's what we are going to make sure that the cost of living, the high taxes, they chase away, people who can invest in our country. And most of our investors went to Tanzania.
What are your alternative tax proposals? Because, at the end of the day, my friend here, and I think these are the things that...
taxes on fuel.
If I was a member...
Well, he's given a proposal.
We'll reduce taxes on
listen,
fuel.
No, that is a sweeping proposal. Put it, contextualize it into a form, a bill,
Okay.
a policy paper, a pronouncement, so that you and me, we can interrogate, we can decide and say, look, these are the proposals from the alternative government, these are the proposals from the government, and Kenyans will make
the policy paper
a
is
decision
very simple.
on the same. But here we are, by the way, for the last 4 years.
Finally,
Yes, for the last 4 years, I was trying to watch around and see whether my friends who are supposed to be the official opposition, will come up with, if there are 22 government ministers, they should have had their own 22 shadow ministers.
No, we're in a
Or
presidential
spokesperson,
system.
Or a spokesperson. No, a presidential system.
That's a parliamentary
No,
system.
you can have a spokesperson for each of the ministry. Yes, I know it's a presidential system, but you can have your
It's
spokesperson.
not allowed under
Okay.
current constitution.
Finally, as we conclude, Dan Manzo.
Yes, I just want to say that, our constitution understands on a presidential system. If you are on a parliamentary system, then you can have those. But we've got alternative, united, we have an alternative government. We are the opposition currently, which is waiting to form government. So everyone is encouraged to register as a voter. The registration is still going on. And the Kenyans will decide at the vote. The most important thing is to make sure that the vote is not stolen, and it will not be stolen because clerk number 1 to clerk number 6 are young people who are registered voters, and they will be there, and Kenyans will vote and stay there to make sure the vote is not stolen. It will be counted and determined at the polling station, and therefore we'll run a parallel tally system, and within 1 hour we'll know the new president of the republic. So Kenyans are ready to send President William Ruto home.
Okay, gentlemen, that's all the time we had, unfortunately. Really appreciate your input and the exchange of ideas, even as, at times you're criticized for not being agenda fast, not breaking down what plans you have for Kenyans. So we'll be looking forward to other conversations where we get to understand the agenda apart from making William Ruto a one-term president, as you've mentioned time and time again. Adan Keynan, asante sana for your time.
Sure.
Eldest Member of Parliament, equally joined by Dan Manzo, the Senator for Makueni County. That's how we wrap up tonight's edition of KTN Prime. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you're adequately informed. I'm Jesse Rogers. Good evening.